Well, hello out there in the rest of the world. Uh, this is the Free Thought Blogs podcast. We just get together with a couple of our bloggers and we talk about matters of interest and import. My name is PZ Myers, and the topic this week, this month, cruelty, war, and despair. I think this might be a depressing topic, but we're here to just talk about, just vent, I guess, how we feel about the state of the world, which is in pretty miserable condition right now. And we'll just turn it over to everybody. So I think we should start with baby, because right, because this was your topic. We're gonna blame you. Tell us what it means. But you're muted. Still no sound.
Hmm.
This is why we're in despair. Technical problems.
Should I perhaps filibuster a bit while Gas tries to figure out what's going on?
Okay, yeah, let's let Hornback go at it for a little bit.
Okay. It's again, this is not a topic I'm really sort of familiar with or comfortable with. So I mean, one of my first things that I do is actually try and look up and sort of see, okay, well, what do people who actually sort of know something about the topic, have to say about it as well? And then maybe try and consolidate, all the information they've sort of shared and all that. Which in practice usually just means, well, just go into Google Scholar, type in a couple of keywords, see what pops up. And, I think there is definitely some interesting stuff out there. I don't know if you want to share the link I sort of dropped into the chat, PZ, but it's actually some links basically it's from one of the organizations that actually tracks conflicts around the world and all that. It's literally sort of an academic project which sort of shares information on that. If you don't have it handy, I do, PZ, so I can bring it up either, as long as you give me sharing access, of course. So I'll take your pick. But if I can sort of summarize what's there, well, again, more technical stuff is being worked out. I can sort of say that, hey, one thing we actually observe with these things is there is actually an uptick in conflict happening right now. Like the past decade or so has shown that, there is more and more sort of, conflicts sort of happening essentially this time. It is a little bit more complicated, though, than simply that, because of the intensity of conflicts, the sort of fairly large ones, um, seems to be sort of going down. I.e., the large scale wars that we sort of associate with with conflict and, well, war, don't really seem to be sort of on the uptick, more or less. What's happening though is we are going to get a lot of smaller skirmishes, and these skirmishes are sort of increasing in time. So, that's actually causing issues with things. What else can I say? And yeah, that is sort of the general trend overall when it comes to such things. I don't know if I can actually share at this point. Nope, not yet. Well, that's okay. It's the link has been sort of dropped into the chat. So yes, that sort of is sort of like the main setting for what's sort of happening here. Is if you compare it to World War II, things aren't as bad, but things definitely do seem to be getting worse in the short term. So yeah, that is kind of an issue overall. And oh yeah, somebody in the chat mentioned world population growth. That is true. I don't think these charts actually incorporate world population growth at all. So we are unfortunately in a phase where conflict is in fact increasing overall. And I mean, the next thing to sort of think about is, well, why exactly is it conflicting? Why actually is it increasing? obviously, if we're talking about large, sociological things and all that, there's never going to be sort of one easy answer to things in that regard. But there is definitely a fair bit of speculation on it. There's a good source over here that I found, which actually tries to predict what actually is going to happen with conflicts overall. Where was the citation here? No. Predicts the changes. Yeah, here we go. It's from Harvard Hergé, predicting armed conflict 2010 to 2050. So, oh, cool. With that, actually, I can start sharing off some of these charts then. So let me bring up one here. I'm going to use system window capture. And where are we? Aha. Okay. Hopefully everybody can sort of see that. We can get sort of a good concept for what here. In fact, I should probably back up a little bit. This basically, if I go back and forward. This is from this organization I was talking about. Essentially, the people who are collecting information on these ones. There's a proper citation here and all that. And this again sort of pulls from their database. Again, you can see, other than one giant spike in 1994, I wonder what caused that. There is sort of like a general trend, again, over the past 20 years where things are increasing overall. Yeah, and hang on, I gotta move something out of my way here. And, click the wrong thing. As we sort of see, even the stuff just sort of involving states and all that, there is sort of like an upward trend in recent times and all that. Let's be a little bit more selective in what I'm bringing up here. And, oh yeah, here's the level of intensity I was sort of talking about here. You can see level of intensity, fairly flat. In fact, even post-World War II, it's flat. But we're instead sort of getting essentially minor skirmishes which are happening overall. Think sort of Russia-Ukraine rather than sort of, again, major world wars and such. Although even Russia-Ukraine has escalated in recent years and all that. And so, okay, the question is, what exactly is sort of fueling such things? Let's see if I can bring up my notes on that one as well. Uno momento, I'm literally bringing up the PDF on the fly. All right, and let's see, I'll at least share the intro itself. I don't want to sort of, sit around and essentially blab from someone else's work for too long, but it is useful to at least show off, my sources here, essentially. But here is, a number of political scientists trying to predict essentially, okay, what exactly is going to happen, with conflicts over the years. It's, where are we? What is it? Sorry. Overall, what you can actually see is that, what I sort of took out of this essentially is the main predictors of what actually sort of causes things. Again, we can sort of debate whether or not the model itself is applicable. They obviously think that, their model does a pretty good job overall. But when it comes to actually sort of predicting what's going to cause these conflicts, what they sort of predict are things related to population size, infant mortality, demographic composition, education levels, oil dependence, ethnic cleavages, and neighborhood characteristics. So that sort of gives you a rough overview of it. And there's the title if you want to search it out for yourself. I did go into Google Scholar, and I did verify you can actually find this one for yourself. So if you want to read along that way, I do definitely sort of recommend it. But yeah, there seems to be sort of a number of things driving conflict in this time. In sort of the downward trend and all that, some of that is just sort of interdependence, essentially, between peoples and all that. One thing I was thinking of that might actually make a difference would be the cheapness of communication. Like, there's a reason why a lot of social media is sort of flooded of images from Gaza, and that's because there's a ton of cell phone towers right around Gaza. Everybody sort of needs those to sort of communicate. And that means then that people, Palestinians trapped within the Gaza Strip can actually go out and actually share, hey, here's what I'm seeing in all that regards. And that can then sort of be amplified and blasted around. It allows you to sort of get real-time reporting, essentially, on what is happening within each conflict zone. What else? So that's one thing that I think is driving it. Another also might be climate as well, too. I remember reading a report from the U.S. government sort of saying that, from the U.S. military, I should say, saying that they expect the number of conflicts to tick upwards, simply because they expect climate change is going to cause more, economic dependence and sort of change migration patterns and cause people to sort of move about in response to that. This is going to increase conflict and, more resources and all that. And you kind of can think of it as sort of a focus on resources. When they say, like oil dependence, it's no coincidence that sort of is part of it. If you are sort of constrained in that regards, there's not much you can do other than say, step out and essentially try and, get your resources from somewhere else. Like, the whole Trump thing of taking over, say, Canada or Greenland and all that, I think to most people it really sort of came out of left field. And it's one thing I really haven't seen a good explanation for why he's doing it, other than, well, this is just what Trump is. He's an imperialist who wants to sort of take over these things. I think, though, a good potential explanation for this is, within the sort of MAGA worldview, it's literally make America great again, i.e., America in its current state is decayed or, deprived in some way. The way he talks about other countries as, ripping off the United States and all that, he views himself as the undertrod, the poor put-upon person and all that, which, obviously is ridiculous. But if you view yourself as the leader of a shithole country, if you view yourself as somebody who's being sort of persecuted and dropped down and all that, one response is, of course, well, okay, how exactly do we sort of fix this sort of thing? And if you can't fix it from internal because there are too many internal enemies who are opposed to you or something like that, then maybe try and fix it from, the outside. If we can't make America great by sort of, relying on Americans to sort of raise themselves up, well, I guess we're just going to have to start conquering, invading other countries. So it actually starts to make a little bit more sense in that regard. So yes, it's, again, economic, things was one thing that I think is driving this as well. I mentioned communication and all that, but communication covers a wide variety of things too, like the ability to actually, like I could, slap down a couple of $1,000s and fly halfway across the world tomorrow if I so desired. We can actually move about and and sort of look at other areas, very easily. And this means then that we can't really sort of otherize other people, because, the number of people who have actually been to India, and all those areas is non-trivial, And when they sort of pipe up and say, well, hang on, you're saying these people are evil. I have been there, I have lived there, I am from there, I can say to the contrary. It makes it a lot tougher to actually, sort of launch a war against those people. And there has been, I think, a bit of research into like democracies and such as being sort of like a moderating force. And I think, the main consensus is more or less, democracies just don't launch wars on democracies. But I think a finer way to sort of put it, essentially, is that we're not talking about democracy per se. We're talking about citizen participation. Again, if your population is heterogeneous, as it invariably is, and a lot of people have input on, what decisions are being made, then you're going to get a wide variety of views. People from all around the world are going to say, well, hang on, you want to try and invade this? Well, I know about this previous invasion, it didn't work. You're trying to, hurt my people, essentially. I'm not going to stand for that. And that really, raises the difficulty on actually, like, contesting these things, and sort of, actually waging war, essentially. Whereas when decision making is sort of concentrated on a small number of people, essentially you're sort of subject to their whims. And if their whims say, yeah, let's go and conquer some territory, well, who's going to, contradict the leader? So I think that's sort of the better way to think about it, rather than just simply democracy being some magic thing and all that. It's sort of more decentralized control is more likely to lead to those things. And yeah, I think that sort of summarizes some of what I sort of consider contributions to, war and that sort of thing. And, some possible explanations for why things are, getting worse, at least in the short term, while still sort of declining, to some extent in the long term. So,
Okay, so have you got your microphone fixed?
I think so, but it does seem a little bit
Yes.
quiet still. You got me?
Oh, it's loud enough.
Oh, good. Ah, why was this my topic? First up, well, I mean, it's just obviously topical. You see the atrocities every day on social media and stuff like that, so it's on our mind. And the particularly the extent to which we feel so damn powerless about it all is this leads to despair and feeling miserable. And I think that that's actually really so that is again like extremely topical right there. I have a policy on my blog. I don't know how many of you have seen this of no doomerism. It's in my sidebar. And I think I'm probably going to be getting away from that a little bit today. Um, Basically, the reason why I say no doomerism is because some people are hit by these things worse than others. We're all okay with see flashing light warnings for epilepsy. We're able to like look out there and see that people have epilepsy and go like, okay, I'm not going to put flashing lights and stuff. If I put flashing lights on stuff, I'm going to put a warning on it. This old hat. But for some reason, I mean, probably much larger numbers of people than those afflicted with epilepsy are afflicted with a high elevated levels of fear, anxiety, and proclivity for despair and distress, right? And when you see something from Gaza and just be like, man, that sucks. And they see something about stuff from Gaza and they're like, their heart rate elevates, their blood pressure elevates, they can't think straight. They're overwhelmed with sort of like a terror that something could happen to them even if it doesn't make sense. And they're like basically their whole fucking day is ruined, right? There's so many people that feel like that have overpowering responses to news that is terrible, particularly if it's got any element of the possibility that it might be something that would come back to them, but even just globally. And I just think that we got to be careful about how we present that information. And when I suggested that hinted that I might be heading in the direction of adopting this policy, I immediately got a response from somebody who's I think it's like a lesbian from the Midwest who was talking about how she was like trying to flee to Canada and that Canada was making it very difficult for her and she felt like she was going to get killed any day now or whatever, right? And I'm like, you're pretty well invisible. I mean, you're like, if you're like a white lesbian living in Kansas, you might end up getting hate crimed in some respects, but you're a lot more capable of having some stealth than the people that are mostly being targeted by this. The first targets of the Trump administration's attempt to playing at genocide is Mexican people, immigrants. Um, you're not that. I mean, like, you're not going to get shot the second this guy achieves power. He's got to have, it's just not happening, right? But she's already in this high warble, and she's maybe one of these people that could benefit from anti-doomerism policies. But she was just like, we all need a lot of people that get scared. They're like, everybody needs to be as scared as I am. And so they like get on there and they spread that fear and panic. And it's extremely bad for people's health, extremely fucking bad for people's health. And I can't fucking abide it. I mean, I got somebody in my household who like gets jumped up by these things. And it's like, so that was how I became aware of it. And that's why I got that no doomerism policy. Just like, you can point to dark realities, you can try to be talk about them. You certainly need to be able to talk about them, but you got to be careful how you present it and like where you're talking about it and whether or not you're going to end with at least some kind of a bit of hope, right? So that's the crux of my policy there. And unfortunately, I we all the thing is we all normal people that don't have that. I mean, the normal people that are like a little bit more healthy in terms of their fear levels and stuff like that, right? Uh, we don't have that problem, but we got to be able to express ourselves too, right? So sometimes it's gonna you can't stifle that. You got to just like come out and be all like, say every dark thing that you're thinking about. And this is kind of like where I am for this one. And I'm like, I try to bring it back to something like, balance it with like going like, something resembling hope, or at least like for, that like a point of realism that for the majority of people in the world, life's still going on. We're not like in a war zone ourselves. And we don't, while we do want to like do everything right that we're supposed to be doing, we don't want to like we don't have to live in constant anxiety and terror, right? So take advantage of that while you can, like what is that? I sort of distracted myself on that one. But at any rate, I just think like today though, no doomerism policy. Today I just want to like just say, God damn, we're fucked. It's just like I'm just gonna, yeah, again, at the end of the day, you and I could be worse. We're some of the like most comfortable people in the world in some ways, right? Like not don't have to live in too much terror. Probably a constant background stress level of being bankrupted by medical bills, but like or losing our houses because like we couldn't pay, we lost our only as a better part of our income with a snap of a finger, right? We got that stuff to worry about, but we're not like we don't have to like watch our children being killed like and just stand back there watching the world like do nothing about it. I mean, like, while the people in power being able to do whatever they want and torture and mutilate and blast apart like cities and people and stuff like that. We don't have to experience that directly ourselves. So we should probably like try and like not, I don't know. But at any rate, I just feel like time to like it's time to like talk a little bit about what we're up against. Because what we're up against is pretty nasty. Who's that guy with the hair? The guy with the big hair that like was all like a Pinker.
Oh,
Yeah, Jesus
yeah.
Christ. Um, So some numbers are in his favor, right? In his whole grand thesis that he was trying to sell, and a bunch of people popped up to be all like, "Well, I don't know about that, man." About how like everything's getting better all the time, and we're entering some like great golden age of peace and stuff like that. And some numbers are in his favor. There's like globally there are some problems that have been like plagued us throughout history that are kind of like dipping. But we're literally operating under fascism right now. The United States has been taken over by fascists that can do whatever the fuck they want with absolutely no opposition. No opposition that has power, right? We're all doing our best to oppose them, but we have no fucking power to do shit. We can like go out there, put our bodies on the line occasionally to make a statement. But by and large, like he could just like Congress, the power of Congress to like determine how the government spends its money, not doesn't exist. The power of the like Supreme Court to like say a law that's been passed by Congress is unconstitutional, gone. Every lever of power in this country has been stacked with fucking Nazis, and like that happened during this golden age where everything's getting better all the time, and until this is just going to get better forever, and we're like we're reaching that beautiful moment when we can like look back at like from our little like Star Trek utopia and look back on the past and go like, ho ho, those were the dark ages. Yeah, that's the time we're living in. I don't know. So anyways, I just it's bad times, man. So this is the podcast for talking about bad times. PZ, what do you think?
I think you were approaching doomerism there for a while. Yeah, but I know exactly what you mean. Personally, this past year has found me retreating as much as possible from the news. And I don't think that's good. I think that's irresponsible of me. But at the same time, I think I'm one of those people who is sensitive to this stuff. and was feeling a lot of empathic pain when this was developing. And further, I kind of got away from the news because what I was feeling was this growing bubble of hatred in my heart for certain people. We can all guess who. And yeah, and I that was not making me feel good. And I had to retreat from it because I was on the verge of just sort of screaming fuck you to the world all the time and nothing else, nothing constructive, because the hate was it's so reasonable to hate these people, yet it's not good for your emotional health to indulge in it. And so it's been tough personally to deal with this. So, it used to be you get up in the morning and you open up the newspaper online or whatever, and you browse through the latest news and you keep on in touch with that stuff. And I just had to stop. I don't know what's going on in the world out there, except that I know that it sucks. Yeah.
Well, and I mean that's why one of the things I wanted to, explicitly sort of front load essentially is the sort of causes of, well, specifically war. But you can imagine this also leads into a lot of other potential topics, related to that. And that's because once we sort of understand what's driving these things, we can combat them. Like, what's the inevitable conclusion that, from saying, okay, well, if war happened, it's because, your socioeconomic conditions are terrible. Infant mortality is rising. You're not really communicating with other countries or, sharing information or anything like that. Well, you fix that. You sign treaties. You set up good relations with other countries. You chat with them and all that. You encourage trade and travel between them. You set up socialist policies that raise everybody up and lower the higher economic people and all that. In many ways, what you do to combat war and all this looks a lot like what you do to make the world a better place in general. So that sort of, reframes the thing from, well, there's nothing we can do about it to, okay, no, there are things we can do about it. They may be difficult or time consuming, but, we sort of know what
I have
exactly
to
to
raise
do.
an objection though. You're
Mm-hmm.
using that second person you multiple times there. What you are you talking to? Because the yous here and the yous that are listening to us out there do not have the power to negotiate or to end war or to reduce military spending or do anything of that sort. We, as was mentioned, we're all the power has gone to some rich elites, and we don't have it anymore. So when I hear something phrased in terms of, you just need to do this, I want to say, no, I can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Can
Well,
I
it's,
can I
oh,
offer?
Yes, Christian.
Yeah, but I mean, I think first of all, you touched on something that's also one important driver for this problem is inequality. We have a lot of the rising inequality has been, you know, rather spectacular the last couple of decades, and I think that's a driver to all the problem, a lot of the problems right now. Because I mean, these people are paying the politicians who are playing fascists. So, but I do agree. None of us can do anything directly, but some of us can and try to actually affect the policies of where we are. And it's different from where you are. It makes obviously it's much easier for my living in a small country with 6 million people to. I mean, my voice is bigger than than your voice in the US, obviously. But that's the only way. I mean, if you don't want to go into politics yourself, and who wants to do that here? Please, God no. I try to see if you can find some politician you can support. You do even in the US, you do have some sensible politicians, and some of them are actually getting into power. So try to help those people if you can, not necessarily economically, but also by helping with campaigns and stuff like that. It
Yeah, and
sucks that we
I'm one of those lucky people who lives in a state that's politically sensible. So Minnesota, we've got Tim Walz as the governor, and we got two senators who happen to be women and are actually pretty good on most of these issues. So yeah, that we have to keep fighting to get these people elected. But again, I worry that it's not enough just to go vote. That
so do I, and I will think I do think that as it becomes more and more apparent that it's not enough, we're going to see more um, CEOs getting killed, all that kind of stuff, because people get frustrated. They cannot do anything, and they see that the real people in power, are the people with the money. And unfortunately, in the U.S., there is a simple way to negotiate money. It's using guns.
yeah.
So
Yeah, and I think that those things like those shootings and so forth are just the early tremors that are leading to the volcanic eruption that eventually has to come. I I don't see any way out of anything short of rebellion and revolution unless, well, we'll see how it goes with the next election if we have one. If we don't have one, then it's obvious that what we got to do is organize and revolt, and that's scary.
Very much so.
There's a so cyberpunk was kind of the predictor, as a genre was kind of a predictor of like what the world's going to looks like now. It was those early stages, and you can see a lot of the things that they were talking about, even in stuff as silly as RoboCop, playing out now, right? It's the world is right now is just like a cartoon exaggeration, like an extremely dark cartoon exaggeration of all the trends that were in place in the 80s. But just oh, what was I I was using it, I think I was using this as a preface to something, and I don't remember what that was anymore. Um, but um, but yeah, like I think that this is a if you take a longer view of history, um, there's a sort of like a push pull between like you know not necessarily democracy because that word didn't exist past before a certain point or whatever, but power being decentralized versus power being concentrated in a few hands. And it just like goes one way, then the other, then the one that is one way again, generally leaning towards the side of having power be concentrated in a few hands. And I think that the idea that we can do, I mean, ultimately do anything about that is kind of facile. It seems like there was this I keep getting back to my chaos theory of well, just like the Ian Malcolm shit. He's like he's in Jurassic Park. This level of control you're attempting is impossible. He's like he's talking about keeping dinosaurs in cages, and I'm all like, you could keep dinosaurs in cages? That's stupid as hell, Ian. Like, but yeah, there I go, violating my ableism policy. But then I came to realize it's true. There's like humans in masses are not there yet. And the thing that's so frustrating about that is that you can see enlightened individuals, like, lots of them even, that are just like, well, I mean, if I was in charge of things, things would be sensible. You'd be nice to people, and then you'd feed somebody that was hungry, and like blah blah blah, whatever, right? And then, but in masses, we cannot be relied on to do anything except fall into these traps over and over again that lead to like war and despair and mountains of skulls and blood and shit like that, right? We're as a species, we cannot fucking control ourselves. We can try, we have to try, right? Because like and this is another part of my shithouse philosophy is that like even if everybody in the world was bad, you want to be the person who's being good, right? But we have to do what we can, and I think we need to vote, and we can't sell voting with despair. So I'm not like this isn't me trying the way I'm going to be talking like come next election, assuming it happens. But um, uh, is this not like the way of everything? Like basically like species go along getting successful in different ways. They kind of like end up becoming over specialized into a niche, and then the niche collapses and then they're gone, like mass extinction event, right? Like we've accelerated that. You look at the impact we're having on the world as greater than like any other species that's come before. How did we do that? It's because we added a second layer to our evolution. We have our physical evolution, like, Black Plague comes along, decimates a bunch of people, natural selection, people that were more resistant to it lived through it. Their genes get carried forward, right? We're still being acted on by natural selection, but we also have cultural selection. And cultural selection basically empowers whatever's like successful. And it's like what's been successful so far throughout our history is patriarchy, tyranny, violence, xenophobia, like, and it plays out on the micro level with like people that just like con artists and stuff like that just they see somebody see a weakness in somebody and they don't even understand it fully because they're not smart people, but they sense it, and they instinctually know how to just like slide right in there and like use somebody's like mental faculties against them. They're like empathy, like, oh man, you just oh, you got to help these needy people over here. Now I'm going to take your money and like use it to buy cocaine and hookers or whatever, right? It's just like just I think there's something in human nature that's gonna make this in the end of this all inevitable. And at this point, it's starting to look like the writing's on the wall. Um, the We're destroying the environment. There's I point to I have a grain of hope in the fact that like cow-sized animals survived the Eocene thermal maximum. There was a time period when global warming got as bad in the shortly some after the dinosaurs went extinct as it is now or close to it. The poles were tropical and the kind of were humid forests, right? That happened, and some animals lived through it that were like so I think that maybe I was worried that like it was but like before I found out about that like we're going to be reduced to the point where there's no life in the fucking world except for us, diseases that live on us, and algae that we grow in vats in order to feed ourselves. That the biosphere was going to be that ruined. I don't think it's going to get quite there, but it's going to get damn close to it, of like all the big, beautiful, wonderful things of nature that still like, are clinging on in some respect now. Kiss them goodbye. It's this is like the world is nat is that we've created is nasty as hell. Everybody's just trying to be okay, just trying to get by and like do their best for themselves and their families and stuff like that. And sometimes that means chopping down another chunk of the rainforest to like feed deer, like to burn the fuel that gets you to your job at the gold mine. Like stuff where rainforest wood into your like car's engine. Like it's a and then like, somebody comes on and says like, well, look at how bad things are here. You know who's causing it? That tribe over there. I hate them. Like if you vote for me, we'll kill all those guys and then we'll be swimming in ducats. Everything will be great here again. And they fall for it consistently. There was an article in The Stranger, well, a whole episode of The Stranger. It was like our local, like Seattle's weekly newspaper that was in the wake of I think Bush's second term, like him coming to power, which is called the Urban Archipelago. And it's talking about how we don't really have red states and blue states. What we have is blue cities and red rest of the world, right? There's and there was a guy in there, and one of their writers is from Uganda, and he had experience with like the like living under Robert Mugabe and stuff like this. And it's basically the same thing. Rural people being like easily led into voting for fascisms that basically make things worse for everybody, including them. In this country, the levers of power, like the reason why this was able to happen is because every media outlet in the entire freaking world is throughout the like in the Midwest, they're living in a cultivated reality. And it was like first it was like Clear Channel, like buying up all the billboards, all the radio stations, all the TV stations and stuff like that. But social media came along, and then suddenly there was this little window where things were a bit different. That you could hear like voices from trans people or like black people or stuff like that in like being elevated by via Facebook and whatnot, right? But then those social media platforms developed algorithms that were driven to drive engagement, to promote, elevate things, content that is inflammatory, to like just separate people from each other so that like people aren't seeing contrary opinions. It's all like you could, living in Kansas, see nothing except the Republican worldview. You could go like morning, noon, night, see absolutely nothing that contradicts that point of view. So when like that much of the country is living in a manufactured reality, like they're gonna consistently vote for horrors. And and it's gonna make life worse for them, make life worse for us, make life worse for everybody on the planet. The Roman Empire wasn't defeated by the Vandals, it was defeated by itself. The United States is killing itself. And we're the only people that can because we are Rome, right? The Vandals are gonna like to come in later, despite like Trump acting like they're here already. There that's I don't know, but yeah, we're just taking ourselves apart. And so I got my shithouse theory is that like we're right now we're in the cyberpunk stage of history. Corporations have all the power, they can do whatever they want. Regular people are just sitting here playing video games and picking our noses and going all like, I don't know what the fuck to do while the toxic waste piles up around us. And then like and then the next part is the dissolution. And I remember where I was starting about the earlier is the cyberpunk. There was a cyberpunk movie called Akira. So I think most of you may have heard of, if not seen. And their depiction of Neo Tokyo was this world where it's all like they're all living in a like a walled city where they've like rebuilt up from this disaster that had happened in the past. And they're like the authorities are very authoritarian. There's random acts of terrorism by political idealists. And then but who's out there in the ruling the streets? It's punks that don't care about anything. They're just like getting high and getting dead, fighting each other. So it's like this is what it's starting to look like in the United States. Terrorism is like the only tool left to the disempowered. Well, like leftists have not been like disempowered like this in a long time. Now that we're going to start seeing more left terrorism, as Christian hinted at there. Um, uh, and what's that going to look like? It's going to look a lot like Akira, honestly. Most people in the United States are not going to care enough to be politically active because they feel utter despair about it. Instead, they're going to spend their lives like, driving fast and doing drugs and dying. And then like there'll be a fringe of political like progressives or whatever that are like, I gotta make the world better somehow. I can't think of anything better to do than blow this guy up, setting off random bombs or whatever. And then there's going to be like the authorities that are just going to be like going around like feeding bodies to the prison industrial complex and trying to keep society at least stable enough to have rich people continue to be rich. And that's what it's going to be looking like for a minute. And then after that, if that gets enough, if the chaos grows to just enough, that the authorities can't keep that going anymore, then things break down, like the internet breaks down. Then you start moving into the Mad Max age of civilization. We don't have enough money to feed, we don't have enough resources to feed people because global warming's wiped those out. There's not going to be any way to maintain control over that, and it's going to be Mad Max, and that'll be the next thing that happens after the cyberpunk era. That's what it's looking like to me.
Although I
Within
have to
this, I
ask,
think it'll be fun.
you
Yeah.
mentioned like the Midwest, we're living in this manufactured reality. The question should be, who is manufacturing this particular reality? Because it's not like we're self-generating it. That here we've got, in the rural Midwest, we've got these small communities of farmers and people working together. There's a long history of cooperation and good things like that. And yet somehow we've had this vision imposed on us that favors totalitarianism, that's just nasty all around, that encourages hatred towards the people who are working right next door to you. We can't ignore the fact that that had to have come from somewhere. Who decided that that was the proper vision for society?
I don't think that sometimes there is a decision maker in this. Sometimes there is a decision maker, and we could point to that person. We could do our left terrorism against them, right? You could go like Murdoch and like us to be all like, whatever, right? But it doesn't. It can be reinvented endlessly. Like there was this book called Why They Hate Us, and I was looking through that book, and I don't know whether or not the person who wrote it like took away the same lesson that I did, but it was basically that like all over the world, over and over again, anytime that anybody like is a greedy jerk and wants power and wants money, they use the exact same fucking trick, which is picking somebody to hate and telling people to hate them, and then people drink that shit up. And I think that the main vehicle for it in the United States is misogyny, is like kind of actually like a really powerful aspect of it. Like the Southern strategy, the sort of realignment between to where the political parties could be more convenient, more consistent in their ethos, was basically saying like, okay, Democrats were the party of racism. That really doesn't match with their idea that you should care for like the poor, which was also part of their policy back then. Well, like let's just switch which party is racist, and then we've like actually sorted ourselves out. We have a party that's based on compassion and is consistently based on compassion, at least in the ethics that they're selling to people. So this is all about branding in a way. And then on the other, I mean, not for people the who it matters to. Obviously, it's important to us. And then you got a party that basically is predicated on cruelty, and that's all they got. And it's like if you could see the switch on environmentalism too. The Republicans used to be conservatism used to include conservation, right? And then nope, fuck that shit, right? It's like they're just they've switched up to this brand consistency, and it helps drive the whole factionalism of the United States, the division within us, and because it helps sell things, and people can do this stuff on instinct. They do not need to. There does not need to be a conspiracy for it. You see what's the zeitgeist. You see what's going on in the culture around you. You see like, man, people don't like seeing in things that make them think of women and weakness and empathy. They like things that make them feel like tough and angry and aggressive, and like they've got no restrictions on who they could punch and what they could do with them with their stuff, right? So it's like and then they just be like, I'm gonna sell that, I'm gonna lean into that, and it ends up being like a largely misogynist in its in the sort of core of the branding, but it branches out into being like racist, xenophobic, militaristic, etc. It's just like we got the man party and the woman party, and those with all the cultural ideas that go along with both of those things. And I think that these things can arise practically de novo. They do not. The trick itself of like picking this person to like play against the other person is something that we just do by nature. So it comes so naturally and easily to human beings. My sister did that shit. First part of my she has an antisocial personality. In the first part of our childhood, she'd basically like pick one brother to sort of like buddy up with, and then use that buddy alliance to uh, do something cruel to a cruel trick to the other brother, and then switch which brother that she did that to, until we got wise and just said, "Fuck you, we're not buddies with you anymore." Period. And then we're each other's best friends after that, the brothers, while the sister is like going off in her own world of messed up shit. So it's like this is like I guess it's like that experience really kind of informs my perspective of, she wasn't a genius. She wasn't like some kind of like Machiavellian mastermind cool person that was like came up with a political agenda and pursued it. She was like doing that stuff at like 5 years old. That was like the spirit, the thing that was going on in my house, like for between the time that she was 5 years old and the time that she was like 12, I guess. We like to some extent, occasionally at least, would fall for that trick. And then we stopped. So it's like this is something that humans just do naturally. It's part of that chaos theory where I'm like, I don't know that we can really like, I mean, if we have better understanding of of this, if science can like figure this out better, and I think we've been from disparate fields have been working on the problem, maybe we could figure out some kind of way to, I don't know, interrupt it, change how this works. But right, it doesn't help that all the power's in the hands of the rich, because the rich basically are just like, what can make me more money? The algorithm driving engagement and isolating people from contrary viewpoints is unless those contrary viewpoints support rich people, and fascism. Like it's just they got all the power. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah. So the Southern strategy is an interesting example because, in an alternate ideal universe, you could imagine that Democratic and Republican politicians running for all office each decided that what we're going to do is what's best for our constituents. We're going to endorse policies that improve the way of life for everyone. And the competition will be between who's got the best strategy for improving the world around us. And it didn't happen because a couple of assholes decided, no, what we got to do is pit different people against each other. We got to milk old resentments and racial ideologies to compel people to vote for us and oppose those people. And it doesn't matter that our policies are destructive and are going to hurt them. All that matters is that we feed into those old beliefs. So yeah, that's the depressing thing. And again, I think it's because, as you mentioned, it's about power. Who gets the power? And the people who grasp at power tend to be the worst people because good people are less interested in power and more interested in things like equality and fairness and giving everyone a chance. And it's the rich jerks who just want to get out there and get more money. And they're the ones
I,
who accumulate the power.
I think junior high is a great micro. I'm sorry for monopolizing this guy, by the way, guys.
It's okay.
I'll try to pull back a little bit at some point. Junior high is a great microcosm of this. Junior high for a lot of people is the worst time of their life, like period. That's like the time they've experienced the most cruelty, the most insecurity, the most pain emotionally. And it's because like at junior high, there's some kind of developmental stage that happens around that age, which basically causes to society, the emergent society of children, to shift to even more bully focused than it was in elementary school. Essentially bullies become the alpha dogs, and then people like try to become invisible by becoming just sort of fading into the crowd, not attracting the attention of bullies, and that ends up basically making them support bullies. So then it's basically like 90% of people are just are essentially bullies or para-bullies, right? And then you got this little fringe of the people that you're allowed to hate and mock and abuse, and they get it the worst. And then the rest of those people, the bulk of those the bully faction are just people just trying to keep their heads down and not get hurt themselves. And they are but who end up functionally supporting bullies, but they're also like living in constant fear and insecurity because of it as well. Like so it's like this could turn on me at any moment. There's something that is like a distilled essence, I think, of what happens as an adult. It's like that junior high, it all becomes like everybody's reached a certain level of intellectual maturity to where they're capable of developing this system. And then junior or high school is where they learn to bury it, right? To like kind of like tone it down, glice it over, like pretend that they're capable of being civilized. And then you get out into the world, and it's like adult things, and it's that veneer's in place. We can imagine that our society is not basically just bullies and people that are just trying to keep their heads down and end up supporting bullies because of it. But it's just like that with a fucking gloss on it, of civilization. It's like Lord of the Flies, the country. That's what I don't know.
Junior high is
Maybe
just when the young kids are getting socialized and they recognize that social status is really important and that there are cheap ways to get it. And so that's what they're doing is the bullies see, oh, here's an easy way to become king of the playground is I punch that stupid little skinny red-haired kid in the face. And that happens all over and over and over again.
But the
It's also a
problem is,
phenomenon. Oh, go ahead, Christian.
yeah, the problem is that this is not only, I mean, Rwanda and Yugoslavia, the former Yugoslavia, showed us also how it can explode so quickly from a micro level to a very, very, large level. Those two conflicts came out of nowhere. Of course, there has been some things below all the time, but that was bullies grabbing the power and the opportunity, and so yeah, we see it even, and I'm actually sometimes surprised we don't see it more in the U.S. I mean, all the pieces are there for this kind of blow up that suddenly. We see the ice is. I'm happily surprised by the pushback on ice because that would seem the first step towards this for me.
Yeah, although, the thing I think it has happened in the US is just that the people who had the power have perpetuated the power. So it's not like there was any kind of turnover in our history. It's always been the rich people at the top who maintain their status and just agglomerate more power and more power and more power. So, if we were to have a revolution, then it'd be interesting to see what happens, see who comes out on top, because usually revolutions don't end well.
Um,
I mean, maybe you're due for one.
Power.
Yeah,
Why
maybe.
do people want power? I think probably to all four of us, I imagine like the idea of having power over other people is just totally uninteresting. It just seems
Yeah.
like some bizarre fetish. Like, what are you doing over there? That doesn't even fucking make sense. I remember like a recurring theme in my childhood for the longest was just being like, why do bullies want people to hate them? Why do they act like this? And I like got to a point where I stopped asking. But I just yeah, that power over other people. Why do you even want that? Some people actually do have a sexual fetish about that stuff, and then ideally, when they do, they're going to be behaving ethically about it. But it was like the biography of Jeffrey Dahmer is talking about his kind of thing. The reason why he would want to like do this like horrible necrophilia and stuff like that was because it was the feeling of having total power over somebody else. So like somebody like Trump is operating like from the same sort of
Yeah.
motives as Jeffrey Dahmer.
Or Elon Musk. Why
Hmm.
does anybody on the planet need $400 million?
Hmm.
Or
They
$400
don't.
billion, excuse me. That
I
that,
don't.
that
I want to call that guy apartheid junior anytime like the hint of his name comes into my mouth. It's the
yeah.
only reason he had anything in the first fucking place. And then he basically like you know getting a stake in PayPal is like led to like which is just it's just like Amazon. It's just something that was like this was inevitably going to become a feature of modern life that was like fun, like kind of fairly necessary for people. And then to do online commerce and just like and then so as a result it's just like a money generating machine. It's just like hoses these assholes with money,
Yeah.
and then what are they gonna do with it?
Jeff Bezos too. We can see the same
Mhm.
phenomenon going on where they have found a way to manipulate the mechanisms of finance, and they just use it to feed themselves more and more and more money. And it just turns them into monsters as far as I'm concerned.
So we're the robber barons are back. They're gonna like make factory towns, companies script the whole nine
Yeah.
yards. Occasionally historians are gonna pop up and like say something about it and manage to like get enough people to go like, oh no, fuck that. That's already happened a couple of times in recent years. There was like some talk about like paying Amazon employees and stuff that they could only use at the company store. I don't remember what it was like, or giving them bonuses in that form or something. I don't remember, but it was like there's hints of this desire in them already. And eventually, right now there's literally nothing holding them back except the amount of time it takes to build that infrastructure. So what in terms of the whole despair, what's the world going to look like going forward here? what are some of the crappy things that we could see on the horizon here, and like what can we do to prepare for them emotionally and physically? Um, I was thinking that like one of those things is going to be corporations taking over, just directly taking over the government in various ways. Doge basically is like the opening salvo of that. Now, like the other guys are going to scramble to take it to get in there. I'm thinking I was it was my article about this. I was saying that the next thing is going to be like oh, what do they call it? Like Goldman Sachs Social Security, basically, right? Like some financial company is going to be like, hey, we can run Social Security better than the government has, and then the government's going to be like, okay, did you buy me enough gold plated hookers? I will give you Social Security now with my grand little hand. And it is so moted be. And then like eventually every level of power is going to be owned by some kind of business concern, and that those business concerns are going to be able to because they've got control over the media, they're going to be able to like just whitewash any atrocities they commit. They're going to be like like it's like the during the labor wars when they had used attacked strikers with machine guns and dynamite thrown out airplanes and shit like that. It's they're going to be doing that stuff, uh, and um, and that nobody is going to be in power is going to be in a position to stop them. The only power that the disempowered are going to have is the power of terrorism, fists, organizing, striking, violence, like things that are going to be are already illegal, and things that aren't illegal yet but are going to become illegal. Like how does modern technology involved in that? Um, you used to the I was saying the NSA had like basically like gotten power carte blanche to like record everything anybody says ever over every phone conversation, every piece of social media, every piece of email. They basically like you can just kind of like assume that they've got it all right. They didn't have the ability to pour through that before, but now they have large language models that could basically do the reading for them, and then like zero in on anything that seemed like oh, this person might be a radical, and then they can target specific people with that kind of stuff. That's fairly unprecedented in the history of tyranny. Um, uh, the only way to get around this stuff is going to be going analog, like developing analog culture again. Like like we're meeting up without using the internet at all. How the hell are we going to like organize at a mass level without that? We've gotten so used to it. It's going to be cells. It's going to be cells like Al Qaeda, like it's a a bunch of different communities over a big wide geographic range that have similar goals and are just like but don't have any kind of formal leadership. Passing back like tape cassettes and stuff that's like not that are going to like have the instructions. On this day we go, comrade. I don't know. Uh,
Since you mentioned cyberpunk earlier, I mean, what you're describing sounds a lot like Snow Crash, which is where everything is balkanized. There's franchises that dominate regions and neighborhoods, uh, that where all the control is laid in the hands of rich rich corporates, scumbags who are running everything. And so, you live in a neighborhood that's owned by a pizza franchise, and they do everything. They do police work, they do all the legal work because they own it and they own you. And that's one way we could go. There's another novel out there that came out before Snow Crash, which is also really good. It's called Jennifer Government. I don't know if anybody's heard of it. It didn't take off like Snow Crash did, but it's the same story that, yeah, we just subdivide everything and we distribute ownership to a small number of people, and they each got their own little enclave where they exert total control. Um, this could be the future, is this kind of subdivision of the entire world into these tiny units that are owned by feudal lords.
And then above that all is like the corporation, the corporate umbrella that like they pay their fealty to in order to like leverage power at a higher level. Like, it's a little we're all belong to the Musk Corps, and they like have the most direct control over the government presidents and stuff themselves. I used to wonder, like, why did Obama preside over some terrible, terrible policies that were like obviously bad for everybody, right? It's just all like, you go in there, you talk some tall talk about your ideals and stuff like that, and probably he was the simplest explanation is he was just lying, right? But to get power. But another thing that had occurred to me is like it would take so little for a corporation to just be like threaten somebody like the president's children, threaten his family, threaten things that he cares about, blackmail him, know every single thing that he ever like said that was at all shisty, and threaten to take away his legacy, his good name, his like everything he's ever like wanted, in order to get him to just like go, okay, now you can do this like terrible thing that we want that gives us a little bit
That's
extra
kind of
money.
that's a negative spin to put on. They could do something positive. Like you get a Supreme Court nominee and you just pay off all his mortgages and all of his debts and then cushion his way in and get him on the Supreme Court and he's going to make decisions in your favor.
Let him come hang out on your yacht.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
See, isn't it nice?
That's
Oh, it's a party.
that's completely unrealistic. Who would ever allow that to happen?
I can't imagine. The that's the other thing that always strikes me in this stuff when you hear about political graft is just like how cheap of a date the average politician is. It's like you could basically like be signing up creating a situation like a pollution where like you're gonna have generations of people deformed and diseased and like angry and like like cause your constituents to fall into despair and ruination because you basically did that, you voted that way, pushed that policy that way for a corporation because they got you a cool lunch one time. I'm just like, it is so, why are these fucking clowns so goddamn cheap? If you're gonna be a like destroy the world, sell out the fucking world's ass to make yourself a little bit of extra loot, like at least have a respectable amount of loot for it to show for it. It's just like this guy. You remember the Dukester, this like guy that got Republican politician that got busted for like graft, and he was like he had a yacht called or not even a yacht, just like a boat that like that said the Dukester on the back, and it was like a gift from some corporation that got favors from him or something like that. And like I'm just like, uh, that boat isn't even that big, man. It's gonna fall to pieces. Boats don't last that long. I'm just like, get something respectable for your bribe. I don't know. If you're gonna be I don't know. They're not even good monsters. I mean, like they're not even. I don't know. They're just embarrassing. They're just.
On that note of good bribes that we would accept in order to just abandon our values, we've been going on for over an hour. This is the time when we should wind it up. So let's just go around each of us and make a statement, make a concluding statement. Tell us where we can find you, that kind of sort of thing. Who wants to go first?
Shall I, since I started us off?
Okay.
All right. You can find me over on Reprobate Spreadsheet. My handle is HJ Hornbeck. As for a wrap up, I mean, I do think, despite sort of the pessimistic tone and all that, it's kind of as I said before, you understand why, this cruelty and war and all that sort of comes about. You then sort of understand how you can combat it in some ways. And this doesn't guarantee that it is combatable or that you'll have the means, at your disposal to do it. But it does at least raise the possibility and give you something, to sort of cope with. The worst thing you can do is just declare it to be inevitable and do nothing. In which case, the cruelty and all that remains, and it's just going to be there forever. Anyway.
Okay. Christian, you got something you want to say?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I have a a not very active blog at Pro Science. Um, it's I have all the intentions of starting, but the despair sometimes take over, and then I then don't feel like writing. So I need to find something happy to write about, I guess. And yeah, and I mean, I think we can still fight these bastards. Yes, we might go down, but I'd rather fight. There's different ways of fighting. You can get active in politics. You can try to just be a nice person. Try to spread some happiness and joy in the world. There's plenty of ways of doing it, but yeah, also try to keep keep raising protest, keep protesting and all that. I mean, that's the only thing we could do.
Okay. Well, I will take the next one because we'll leave Baby with the last word. But I just want to mention something I brought up on my blog today, and it was this nice article um, that you can find on The Guardian, and it sort of summarizes how I feel about it because this is a historian who's been reviewing lots and lots of examples of empires and countries that collapsed. And the key thing is the lessons he has drawn are often striking. People are fundamentally egalitarian, and I agree with that. I think most people are pretty good, but are led to collapses by enriched, status-obsessed elites. While past after the collapse, it often improved the lives of ordinary citizens. So the French Revolution had the right idea, recognizing that these aristocrats and wealthy people who were exploiting the common man, they were the problem. And that's what I think we have to do is it's going to come down to we got to take the Jeff Bezoses, the Elon Musks, and the Donald Trumps, and all these filthy, rich, greedy, selfish people and take them down several notches, hopefully, uh, hopefully completely down, but we'll see. Okay. Anyway, so that's you can read that about that on my blog, Pharyngula, but also just go direct to The Guardian and this article, Self-Termination is Most Likely, the History and Future of Societal Collapse. I think it's a good predictor for what the future is going to be like. And it's written by a historian who is kind of an anti-Pinker. Pinker gets it all wrong, and this guy seems to have the right message. Okay, take it away, BB.
Yeah, this is like what HJ said about like, you don't want to like just say it's inevitable and there you can't do anything about it. And so because you can't like sell action with that way, I think this was a significant reason why the Democrats lost in the most important election in human fucking history recently. It's just all they had was despair. All they had was just like this, oh, you're gonna fucking die if these guys get in there. And it's all like, well, some amount of people are gonna die, but like that basically terrified people into hiding under their beds. It didn't motivate them to go to a fucking polls. So when it comes to time to like say, do your part, vote, whatever, I'm not gonna be selling it with this point of view. But I have to express this point of view. The cyclical nature of this, the repetition of it, the guaranteed nature of this to happen over and over again and to get worse each time, success iteratively worse. It's just like it just doesn't. It seems like this is going to be it. Cyberpunk era, Mad Max era, total reset on stuff which could well result in human extinction, right? I that just feels so inevitable to me at this point in time. Maybe it would feel less inevitable if like anybody in power ever did anything right fucking ever, right? The whole like I often think about this whole like there's this effort among particularly among billionaires that care about what the people think about them and have a little bit more perspective to like try to go like, no, I'm the good billionaire. Look at these things that I did, right? And like or to salvage the reputation of a billionaire who's gone before like some kind of right. And it's just like but consistently, when it comes time to actually do something like that would improve the world with their funds, they don't fucking do it because they can't. They fucking can't. Like they're owned by their money. They're owned by like their status, their power that they have. They cannot lose any of it. The Democrats, the thing that Obama could have fucking prevented all of this. I'm gonna be hashtag thanks Obama over this one like that. He could have curtailed executive power, seen the writing on the wall of the danger of white supremacy. Like, if he couldn't talk about it, right? He couldn't talk about race without risking a big backlash. So he had to like play nice with racists, and he did that very successfully, too successfully. I'm not saying he should have made a vocal public stance against racism. He could have used the power that he had to do that behind the scenes, on the down low, task the FBI with like breaking up these fucking right-wing terror cells that have basically become like Trump's like main like thug enforcers. Like the Proud Boys were working with the cops during his first term. They are going to become the cops this time around. It's just like he could have headed off a lot of this stuff. The writing was on the wall. It was easy enough to see, but he couldn't. He's constitutionally incapable of it because he's like another rich jerk protecting rich jerks. And more interested in his reputation and power than he was in like making the world a better place in the future, like where his fucking children are going to be growing up, you know? Um, I just I don't know. So anyways, while I have a globally despairing aspect of my beliefs at this point in time, on a personal level, I think that we have to do everything that we can because like that the way that history is vacillated between or tyranny and freedom and like the freedom can't happen without everybody doing everything they can all the time in any way they can to like make the world a better place. And it doesn't have to be like putting your body on the line at a protest. At some point, you might end up having to be, but it doesn't always have to be like that. Just like tend your garden, like say hi to your neighbor, like just be kind, like care for each other, like try to encourage other people to care for each other. Just I think that these things can make the life tolerable even under fascism. And the if we just like we keep that going and keep everything else we can do any way we can do it. And I do think that like for a lot of us, our lives will be not significantly different from what they were like not under fascism, right? I mean, like we get up, we go to work, we're gonna keep doing that. And so we don't necessarily have to, even if the world is like on the path to doom, um, at every stage of that path, a person can live a complete life that is okay, passably okay and worthy of continuing, right? Like there are people in the world, the United States is on a rocket train to like look and live in like they do in the Philippines. And the Philippines, people have lived in the Philippines for a long time. And they're going to keep living there. And it's just like we can have passable lives even if we do suffer more than we have before. Like
I'm going to say the same thing I said earlier to
yeah.
HJ is you keep using these personal pronouns like we will be fine. We can keep going. That's not true for everybody.
True. Very true.
There's an awful lot of people who are going to suffer and die and be miserable in general. And we can't just take comfort in the fact that here we are fairly well off, relatively speaking, and not suffering too much right now because people are going into prison camps right now. We have concentration camps, and I don't think we can just gloss over that. We have
I,
to,
I I'm not trying to gloss. I would
yeah,
say that we have no choice but to try to take solace in what we can take solace in, because otherwise we're ruined by it. It's like you
yeah,
said, like hatred was getting up on you, like making your life bad. Likewise, despair or like focusing overly on the plight of everybody that's suffering right now could also possibly be a problem for some people. People that
yeah,
can fight like the good fight, people that can pay attention to these things without having it dust their entire day off. They should, right? Like people that are able to help other people should, but a lot of people are not going to have the fortitude or the power to do that. And if they're going to like take solace in the fact that they have a garden while they have a garden, more power to them. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, and
Okay.
yeah, like I don't
Oh,
know.
just going to say on that note, let's let people go, and we'll end it. We'll come back next month with something completely different. So we'll talk to you all later, and I'm going to end the stream right now.
Rock on. See y'all later.
Okay, it's over.
Woo.
So